Alphabet, the Google parent, falling after saying it plans to nearly double its spending this year. The company reporting capex spend in the range of $175 billion to $185 billion. As CEO Sundar Pichai says, AI investments are driving revenue and growth across the board. Joining me now, John Blackledge, TD Cowen Managing Director and Senior Equity Research Analyst. So, John, what is the difference between a company that announces huge spending plans and the stock rises, and one that announces huge spending plans and the stock falls?
Yeah, Julia, the gap there is expectations. And so, like you referenced, at the midpoint of their capex guide, 180 billion, double last year. We had been forecasting 125 billion. Sell side consensus was 115 billion. And I felt like just in our investor conversations leading into earnings, investors were around 130 billion. And so it's actually, it's a pretty big gap. And so I think investors today are digesting this guide on capex, but also with it, and what you just led with, this cloud revenue acceleration was massive. So you are seeing the AI demand and investments in cloud search growth accelerated. And Sundar also mentioned that there are capacity constraints still, just given the strong demand at cloud, at search, et cetera, for the strong AI demand. And so they're going to double capex, and they also said, like, even despite doubling capex this year, they're still going to be constrained entering next year. So that just gives you an idea of just how much demand there is for their AI offerings.
So it sounds like you think that maybe the sell-off is a bit of an opportunity for investors to step in, or that it's sort of misguided?
For sure. I mean, yeah, it's looking down 4 to 5% today. And to be fair, the shares are up 60% over the past year.
Sure.
So, for us, I mean, if you look at Alphabet, I mean, they have arguably now the leading foundation suite models with their Gemini suite of models, which is driving, kind of like I just referenced the cloud growth and all the opportunities there. And then, like, if you look at search, right, their core business, search growth accelerated by a couple points, beat street estimates. It was broad based across verticals, across geos, and they said that AI mode and AI overviews drove record engagement at search, which is pretty historic. And if you go back over the last year, I mean, Alphabet's done an incredible job, A, with its Gemini suite of models, B, incorporating AI tools like AI mode and AI overviews into the kind of broader search umbrella, and really kind of stave off that sentiment that was out there the last couple of years of ChatGPT being a big secular risk to Google search. And so, from that perspective, we're entering the year for Google. Their businesses, search and cloud, are in really good shape. They're accelerating. So, it may take a step back today, but I think the story is like over the next couple of years, still a great story.
To your point about Gemini, I thought the numbers were interesting there. That 750 million monthly active users on the Gemini app, which of course doesn't capture desktop or people going to a browser, I suppose, and using it. And then they said they had, 8 million paid users on Gemini Enterprise, which was also interesting. How do you think about Gemini as the engine for some of those other things that you were talking about, and sort of how the consumer-facing users on the app or wherever then feed into the enterprise flywheel too?
Oh yeah, no, it's the Gemini 3, Sundar was talking about it last night, how great of a model it is, and you're right, like, you're seeing it in the enterprise. Yeah, the 750 million on the consumer side, 750 million MAUs. That was up from 650 million at the third quarter. And they said engagement is also rising in the standalone Gemini app. They also called out the Apple relationship and how they're partnering there, and how this is from the enterprise perspective. Apple's going to be building their foundation models off of Gemini and off the Gemini suite of models. So it creates, when you have kind of leading tech like this, leading foundation models, it creates incredible optionality for Alphabet, both on the enterprise side and on the consumer side.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about was a comment that the CFO made on the call that the AI agents are writing about 50% of Google's code at this point. I mean, do you anticipate a big wave of job cuts at some place like Google if that is indeed the case, that they're just not going to need as many people to do coding there?
I don't think so. And you had some headcount growth. We're past the days of like right after COVID where these companies were adding a crazy amount of employees. And I think you've seen, well, you saw it at Amazon, they're obviously cutting, but I think for Alphabet we have modest headcount growth. One of the benefits of this technology is the productivity gains. But if you go back to the Meta earnings last week, I think their CFO said, this was in the callback. She said, "Yeah, we're seeing productivity gains with our engineers." And someone asked if they would cut heads, and they're like, "We actually may add more. More great technical workers that are more productive can kind of drive their business." And I don't, so I don't see Alphabet with broad headcount cuts to come, but headcount growth has slowed definitely, obviously, over the last couple of years.
Right, and we got Challenger Grain Christmas numbers this morning showing lots of job cut announcements in the month of January. I wanted to ask about Waymo and its role here too. Of course, it was in the other bets part of it, right? So
Yeah.
again, like when you think about these things that sort of seem like side businesses for Alphabet, of which it has many, how do you think about what it means to the business?
Yeah, I mean, Waymo, I think they're raising at like $110 billion valuation. It's still a really small part of the overall Alphabet valuation. But I mean, they're the leading AV tech, full stop, in the United States. They're in 6 markets now. They just launched in Miami, I think, last week. We think they're going to be in upwards of 20 markets in the US and London and perhaps even Tokyo by the end of this year. They're definitely accelerating their roadmap. And no, and it's been a long-term investment, and that's what Alphabet does. They bet on the long term. And so over the next 5 to 10 years, Waymo is going to be increased. We're going to increasingly see Waymo, in the U.S. and outside the U.S. Definitely a part of the rideshare industry. I also cover Uber and Lyft, and then we'll see how it evolves and if it becomes if they partner with OEMs and kind of the technology is on the autonomous technology is on vehicles that consumers can buy.
Finally, I do want to get your take, John, because obviously you're positive on Alphabet. We're seeing the shares under pressure today, but this is happening amidst the backdrop of a bigger tech sell-off, right? Yes, a lot of it's concentrated in software, but it has gone well beyond software at this point. What do you think that reflects? How far do you think it could potentially go? And what's going to regain the confidence of the market in some of these names?
Yeah, I mean, I always go back to, kind of execution. We're going to have to look at execution, and we're going to get Amazon tonight. I also think it should be good, and we're bullish. We're bullish on Amazon, but I think it would be the companies executing and proving out that there are returns for these AI investments, and work on the part of folks like myself and my peers and investors on figuring out the returns for this really historic AI infrastructure investment cycle that we're in. Yeah, I don't know in the near term if the tech tape is gonna turn up, but I think you're seeing like the fundamentals for these companies are really in great shape. Obviously, we've talked about Alphabet. Meta's fundamentals are very good. And we think Amazon's are as well. We don't cover Microsoft and some of the other players, but yeah, so we'll have to see. But yeah, execute and kind of follow their plans.
We shall see what ends up happening. We know they have big plans, that's for sure. John, thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you.